Today we're going to be talking about something scary, making a short in time for Halloween. We're talking with Isabel, an animator and illustrator here at Coronation, and Christopher, an associate producer. And this was your first rodeo in animation.
Yeah.
It's a scary process, but does it have teeth? Find out on this episode of Heralds and Fools. Welcome to Heralds and Fools, the podcast where we talk shop. We talk about client projects, passion projects, the nitty-gritty details of what makes creative life so fun. So today we're going to talk about Fruit Bat, which is a fun little project. Whenever we have an opportunity in a little bit of a window, we try to at least have something cooking, and Fruit Bat was one of these things. So let's watch it together, and then we'll break it down.
Sweet.
Cool.
Nice.
Good job. I love it.
I still think it's funny.
Yeah, I love it. So let's talk about the initial. How did this whole thing happen? Where did Fruit Bat come from?
So Seth and Peter and I love to talk about things that we want to make. We love talking about how much we like 2D animation specifically. And as we were kind of journeying as a company into exploring 3D more, Seth, Peter, and I want to name all three of us because
Okay.
it's like a recurring conversation. It's like we really, really like 2D animation. We love cell animation. Sarkis Tarzan was like really a great learning experience. It was super fun to work on. So we wanted to do another project that was similar, and we knew that the opportunity would probably not arise organically.
Yeah.
And Seth came to me and essentially kind of asked me, like, do you have any ideas? Because, like, let's just start doing something behind Bill and Gary's back. Let's start developing an idea, and then when we have it concrete enough that we think that they might go for it and, like, give us a little bit of time, then we can pitch it to them. And so we started brainstorming, and since it was kind of coming up on, autumn, and that's kind of, I have a bit of a reputation.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think it had anything to do with autumn coming up.
It was the fact that October 31st was coming up.
Yeah, but we're also doing another short right now, and it is spring, and it is skeletons and set in a graveyard. What is your reputation?
What is my reputation? I don't know. I like horror movies a lot.
Yes.
That's what I actually like told Bill when I was at first talking to him when we first had kind of an interview.
Yeah.
You guys weren't hiring, they weren't hiring, but I applied and Bill reached out to me and had looked over my portfolio and was like, oh, let's just build a connection. And so it was like over Zoom. And I had nothing that I was working on at that time except for a joke animation based on a Lucky Star meme that was going around. Lucky Star's an anime.
Okay.
Based on the Saw movies.
Okay.
I was making an animation, and that was the only thing I had to show him. And I remember I showed it to him, and he was so nice and polite about it. And then I got off the call. I was like, I'm never getting a job at Coronation.
You don't. Bill. Yes, Bill's a Warhammer guy. Like I mean, there is a divide between Saw and Warhammer, but it wouldn't have scared him away.
Well, I know that now because I have a
Right.
poster of The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, up behind my desk. I
As
really
you're
like
working on little nice content for children.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Were you here at the onset of this project? Christopher's a new kid on the block.
Yeah.
And mostly live action background.
Yeah,
Not
mostly
an
live
animation
action
background guy.
Yeah. When did you guys start working underground?
I don't remember. I remember that we were coming up on autumn We were
Okay.
coming up on fall. That was the excuse, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That was my excuse that I was like, this needs to be something that's like spooky and like Halloween themed so we can release it at Halloween.
Yeah. Because I became an associate producer around October.
Yeah. Okay. So it was all
Okay.
co-occurring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were probably coming up with it in like September then.
Okay.
Is when we were first. And Seth had some ideas about doing like a farmer's market kind of thing and having a spooky character be at the farmer's market. Like I really like werewolf transformation sequences. There was this one specific animation. I'm going to see if I can find it. There was one specific animation that was like it was a GIF. I saw it on like Tumblr that was like just a really, really cool transformation sequence or just like a motion with like Jason Voorhees. And I loved, like, it was just super dynamic. And I was like, if we can make something like that, like have some sort of transformation, that would be really cool. So it was kind
Which
of
is also like where Cell really shines and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Well, so this is no longer set at a farmer's market. Let's go through this.
Yeah.
It is no longer set at a farmer's market. It is very much not, at least not farmer's markets I've been to. We talk about the development of it.
But
it could
coming,
be the
he's coming from a farmer's market.
Yeah, okay.
Potentially.
That's the behind the scenes. That's secret information. But like all of these kinds of conversations, like these little bits, like, oh, wow, how would he do, like the logistics of it were how we kind of came up with the idea, the joke. And I was like, we have to end on a joke. It has to be some bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the joke being that
Fruit bat.
yeah, he's a fruit bat. He's not a blood-sucking vampire. He's just a nice guy.
Because you see something that looks like blood.
It's not.
But it's not. But you only know that
tomato
after the
juice.
fact.
Yeah.
You know, so
That's
a good bait and switch, if you will. Yeah.
Dope. Well, let's talk about it because, like, I think the thing too. So basically, you guys have this sort of like aesthetic goalpost, or it's more sort of process goalpost. You're like, we want to do some Cell stuff. We want to do a Cell short. This is not exclusively Cell. This also has puppet animation in it too.
That's true.
Which I know Peter for a few months has been like, I really want to like get that back and forth, figured out.
Yeah, Peter, we've really early on pitched the idea to Peter, and he actually was the one who kind of reined us in and was like, you need to have at least one sequence, like for how long this is going to be and how much cell animation that would be. You need to have something that's like a little easier or like less high budget, something that you can knock out quicker. And he was the one that made sure that we understood if this was going to be a reasonable project to make, we would need to do that puppet animation, which I remember was very confusing for you because it was a totally different, you had to set up like two different kinds of
tracks.
Pipelines. Two different types of pipelines.
Pipeline is the word.
On our project management software, ClickUp.
Yeah.
Shout out to ClickUp.
Shout out
to ClickUp. ClickUp is really cool, and we are your favorite, and you should sponsor our 200 listener podcast because we use ClickUp all the time.
Yeah.
Isabel clearly loves ClickUp.
Oh, it's my favorite.
Yes.
I love ClickUp.
I know you do because you're a producer.
Yeah.
What does a producer
like
do?
ClickUp.
What is a producer, Christopher?
Well, it's a lot. It's project management, handling lots of different tasks, budgets, schedules, permits,
making sure things work. You don't need permits for this though.
No, not in animation. No. So.
Well, how was the experience of going from someone who has done a lot of live action set stuff to then working on, and now you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
But what was it like at the onset?
It was throw me into the deep. There was a lot to catch up on. You know, I helped out on an animation project in school in college, but like that was very tangential, and so now to be the guy who's managing all this stuff but doesn't know what a layout is or a character sheet. I'm like, well, doesn't that looks like a character to me, But
we're all like, you have no idea.
I'm like, okay, well then I won't mark the task as done.
Yeah, right.
You did look a little bit like a lost puppy in the very first meeting we did.
Yeah.
We were throwing around these terms, and
you were the
every
fruit
time,
and they were the bats.
Yeah.
Every time you're like, what is that? What does breakdown mean?
Yeah,
in this context.
Yeah, no, I was like, yeah, because I know breakdowns as like a script.
Yeah, right.
Like scene by scene.
Let's talk about what a breakdown is. You have a script. It has a story. A breakdown is identifying every element, every prop, every character, all the logistics.
Yeah.
For live action, that is completely different than for animation.
Yeah.
Or what it entails is completely different.
Yeah.
Because you don't just go to, Walmart and buy a pencil. You have to design a pencil.
Yeah.
And it has to be considered.
Yeah. That's one thing about animation that is very, very cool, is that everything gets made.
Yeah.
Like it feels more like, old movie time.
Yeah.
Where not like you couldn't shoot on location.
Right. Right.
I mean, you could, but
because of lighting and logistics and exposure. For sure.
Everyone's designing stuff.
Yeah.
Everything has to get made, and there's nothing you can't not think about.
No, there's no throwaway anything in anything. Well, so and that's a good question too. So, a lot of people. One of the core things about being an animation studio, that is especially one that works as an agency, is you have to be really ready to adapt style, and you have to be ready to do different styles, and you have to get a team of artists who all have default styles. Every artist has like a way in which they draw typically, and then you have to bring them all into cohesion, and everyone has to stay on model and work together and be one entity. That's a big challenge.
Yeah.
And it's the one that when we went to this animation conference, and I was talking to some old Disney guys about it, and they were expressing the same problems, and I was like, okay, like
it's always been this way.
Yeah, it's always this way. It doesn't matter if you're working at Disney or there's challenges are still the same. But talk about the aesthetic sort of like development here, because like this is particular aesthetic development. Where'd the source code come from? What were you thinking about?
Invader Zim.
Okay.
1,000%. I have a really emotional connection to that. I love that show so much. It means a lot to me. I love the style of it, and I think when we were first talking about doing it in Cell, we were having conversations about what the style of it would be, because we didn't want it to be. I think that was something that we discussed with Sarkis Tarzan. I don't know why I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
This is something we discussed with Sarkis, is that Peter designed characters to his kind of. To his preference, to his aesthetic.
He was really into Popeye and old school classic animation, Rubber Hose. That was like where he was like fascinated by what he was fascinated by at the time.
But he also communicated during the final meeting. He was like, well, I wish that we would have pushed that further. I wish that I would have made it even more stylized in that direction instead of kind of pulling back,
Yeah.
And I still think it is very stylized. But when we were talking about this, I was like, well, if this is pretending this is the very last Cell animation we're going to do, let's go as stylized as possible. Let's make it really, really pushed. Let's make it really extreme.
Yeah.
And so I was doing a bunch of doodles. I did a lot of sketches. At first I was kind of designing, once we decided it was it's a vampire and he's going to be a fruit bat, that'll be the visual gag. It'll be kind of sort of a pun. And we want him to be in his Dracula mansion. I was going more Nosferatu with my initial sketches. Seth drew Dracula, and I was like, I guess it's got to be Dracula.
Well, okay, so Nosferatu, this is prior, because this was before the more recent one came out, because that would be a completely different thing.
Different Nosferatu. I would have been, I can't pretend I wasn't thinking about the Eggers Nosferatu.
Sure.
Very excited about that movie. It was awesome. But
yeah, this is a very different vampire than Nosferatu.
No, he's a nice guy.
He's, you're not too worried. He's not going to bring any problems or the Black Plague or anything to your town.
He is going to steal your produce.
Well, unless he has a guy.
Unless he has the funds.
Yeah, which, his real estate is nice. Let's talk about that opening frame.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Joseph
this is Joe
killed
helped.
this.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Joe knocked this out. As soon as kind of we decided, okay, we're going to go super extreme, early 2000s cartoons, specifically Invader Zim with the super angular, shapy, doesn't quite make sense. This is reined in. This is a little bit realistic, but the road, the way that the road is super jagged, the mountains, the way that the clouds just kind of all converge upon this center point. It's very cartoonish.
One of the things that I just love about this, and it's funny because my preference on the way to watch this is we have a old TV that I wish was running all the time, but it hums and it drives Bill nuts.
Yeah, I can hear it.
I love
too,
that
but-
thing.
I freaking love it. So we have an old TV, and I got this little thing where you can put an SD card in and then play it on an old school TV.
If we slap
And it
like
looks
a,
like it's a VHS, and that's the way to watch this. It looks really.
we
really
should
cool.
re-release this.
Yeah.
We should re-release this with a VHS like filter slapped over it and see if it gets like more views.
Well,
I
let's
guarantee it would.
let's give it another view right now and watch that first shot, because I think the intro of the cell. This to me is so. It's such a little thing, because you could do this in other ways, but it being cell animation makes it have so much life. I just want to see the bat flying towards the.
Oh my gosh. And the bat
entry here.
animation looks so phenomenal, and that is Jason Bach.
That is Jason. Awesome. It's just so, and this too. I mean, the whole thing is just like, there are ways that you could approach this with rigged animation up until the transformation.
Yeah.
All right, we can pause there. But
Transformation.
it has so much life, and it being on twos, and you did that interior, right? The layout of the interior animation when he's flying around in circles.
When he's flying. Okay, so I did the boarding for that.
Okay.
I do what would give any other professional animator hives, which
Okay.
is I animate very straight ahead.
Oh, you do.
I tend
Okay.
to just kind of go. I start doing the blocking, and I start with like the main poses, and then I just want to see it move. I just get too excited.
Yeah.
So I did like a very vague kind of animation for it. It was very choppy, and
Okay.
it wasn't fully dry. It was like sketched.
Okay.
And then I handed that off to Peter.
Okay.
And Peter finished it. And then at the point where he is, at the crescendo, he's at the highest point,
Yeah.
and his wings go up in this pose, we switch, and now it's my animation.
Oh, that's so fun.
From Dream.
That's so cool.
So it goes from harmony, I believe he used Toon Boom harmony, and then it goes into Procreate Dream.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah.
You can tell if you look at the line thickness.
Yeah, sure. But it's moving so quick you don't even know. I honestly didn't even realize you snuck the logos on there. And I've seen this 1,000 times.
Oh, it's awesome.
The
Right?
Coronation logos in there.
Yeah, there's a few.
I can't remember if this specific background shot is Megan or Joe.
Yeah,
We're
well, let's just
trading
shout
off.
out everyone who worked on this
Yeah.
right now, because
Yeah.
I think that it was passing hands so much. Shout out to Isabel, obviously. Seth was working on this. Megan, Jason Bach, Peter Ferguson. Am I missing anybody? Renee did the edit and the
She did.
sound design.
Yeah.
Renee did.
So shout out to all of you guys. It's really fun. Where was Seth
Did
really?
you say Seth Bortner?
I did, yeah, and that was what I was curious about too, because Seth isn't a cell animation guy, although he has done some. That's not his primary thing. Where did he come in? And he was doing the composites and what else?
Yes, he did the composites. He did the puppeting
Okay.
animation in the very last shot. He helped with the character design. He helped me nail down the storyboards a lot.
Okay.
He kind of tapped me on the shoulder at one point. It was like, we are running out of time. It's about to be
Halloween.
we're coming up on October. We're almost to October. Finish the story because we were been playing around with everything, and so I think the day of we finished those boards, and so he really was and he was the one who was really, really checking in on everybody throughout the process of the animation. He was communicating with you a lot. Yeah. I think we kind of traded off being I guess I would be considered the director of this.
Yeah.
Seth did as much, if not more, directing, in my opinion. He was really active on Slack, RIP, rest in peace.
ClickUp chat.
ClickUp,
really good.
yeah.
Shout out ClickUp chat.
ClickUp is awesome.
ClickUp is better than Slack.
Oh my gosh, ClickUp is so great.
ClickUp is good because it keeps everyone on ClickUp. See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Is if everyone's on. Okay.
Please add custom emojis.
Here's the
if
reality.
You're watching this.
Filmmaking, animation, it's all nothing without production and project management.
Yeah.
Because we would be just doing creative things in the dirt with no end goal, interminably drawing, and having the ironclad or the iron fist of a project management software allows us to have things done in time for Halloween. Did we hit Halloween?
We did.
Okay,
we
so
hit
we
Halloween.
did. Thank God
Sorry
for
if I
that.
just destroyed the mic. Yeah,
No,
and
you're good.
thank you so much for keeping us all on track and just reminding us and touching base all the time.
But here's the hack.
Really got it done.
If you're running a studio, you're running an agency, and you want a good project management software, use ClickUp. It's really good.
You can link tasks right in the chat,
Yeah, because we used to be
shameless?
We use I'm extremely shameless. We used to use Monday.com. Come on, Monday. Who likes Mondays?
Yeah.
No. Then we used Reich. Come on. It's called Reich. Why would you do that? Yeah. And both of those are nowhere near as good as ClickUp. And then we used to use Slack, which who wants their employees to have too much Slack? You want them to be clicking up.
I like ClickUp chat.
ClickUp chat is great. So anyway, that's the real thing. Everyone needs to know.
That
That'll be on the
thing,
thumbnail.
Unedited, has to be in the final edit. I want this whole half of this is about Fruit Bat, and half of it is
just about ClickUp.
Gary desperately trying to get a ClickUp sponsorship.
Okay, so no, here's the thing though, and I know this is what everyone wants to hear. Project management software is actually a big deal. Yeah. And we really struggled for a long time to have a project management software that allowed us to put our projects in a way that made sense, but also had a level of visual appeal. And Monday.com had visual appeal, but it didn't have the depth needed. Reich had no visual appeal and had all the depth. And ClickUp had visual appeal and the depth. And then they added Slack, basically, to it. And we've built all sorts of integrations. And it is... It's really good. And I even told Bill, I was like, we can't transition to ClickUp. We got to do it eventually. And then he did it anyway.
Yeah.
He did it on the side, and he ran his own thing, and he rebuilt everything. And he was like, it's better. I was like, okay. Anyway, back to things that people actually care about, which is how the art of this was made.
Yeah.
We move here into the transition, and then we do go to our first, let's identify the first rigged shot. Because I think it will, okay. You can see it. Like, you can see it. You can definitely know the difference.
This is my, we'll skip over this for now. That's
Cell.
Peter. That's Cell.
That's Cell.
That's also Peter, I believe.
Yeah. And here we go.
This is Seth's puppeted. Yeah. And I believe Megan did the design look for this. I know we already shouted everyone out. I just get so excited.
It's really fun.
Everybody's stuff coming together, and it's exciting.
And I love projects like this too, because like really the sort of studio mandate is like, we need to have a creative project that we can put in front of people that people will probably like, but there's still even like, it's like the end goal is not, there's no ROI specifically. A lot of the reasons we do this stuff is so that we can try things out. Like we have one going right now, the Skelly Scare, which we're trying a whole different pipeline out. And it's a way for us to iron out kinks on pipelines before we get into the sort of like client work or, series work where we need them all ironed out. Mm. Yeah. So even like that, like experimenting, that's Toon Boom. I assume that's Toon Boom Harmony then. I actually don't know.
Animation?
The rig, or it's After Effects.
Yeah.
So we didn't even
As
use
if
Harmony.
Seth would use anything
other
than After
Everyone
Effects.
was using different programs.
So we have After Effects, Procreate Dreams, Toon Boom, Photoshop for painting, I assume, but also Procreate? Because Joe, I know, does a lot of Photoshop painting.
Probably did the backgrounds in Photoshop.
Okay.
Megan did the backgrounds in Procreate, I think.
In Procreate.
Yeah, being a small studio, there are some studios that are like, we're the Toon Boom Harmony studio, and that's their thing, and that's what they do, and they use other things too, but they really like hyper index on one program. We are still, I would say, GarageBand experimental. We like playing with different things.
And everybody does what needs to get done.
Yeah,
there was no like hard and fast rule for like, you're doing this, you're doing that. Like everyone was doing a lot of different work on this.
The hard and fast rule is it has to be like the boards and it has to be like the character design. But getting there were different ways in.
Yeah, and getting there was great. Yeah.
And when did we finally launch? Did we finish like on Halloween?
I believe so.
We finished on October 30th. And then on October 31st, I came in, and the sound for my little animated sequence was not synced properly because there was a tiny change that needed to be made in the compositing.
Yes. So this is not done for you. There are still revisions you have that you want to make on this.
Oh, I love that you say that as if you don't remember coming in and telling me, Isabel, it needs to ship. You need to let this be posted and finished.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there like sweating bullets over like the Premiere Pro file, which I hadn't touched in a long, like since college, I hadn't touched Premiere Pro.
Was that like the 8 p.m.?
Well, I remember I was here for another reason. A lot of us were here late that night.
Yeah, didn't we have like pizza?
I think we did. I can't remember if I was working on a script or what I was working on, but I was here late, and you were here, and Renee was here, and you were here.
Yeah.
And you guys stayed very late. I think, and Peter was here, and it was like 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
It was just partying.
I was there
rather
for moral support.
Yeah, you're just hanging out.
Yeah.
You're a producer.
I was like, hey, I'm not gonna go.
He'll
home.
work for pizza.
Yeah.
He'll do anything.
You probably got the pizza.
I don't remember. Yeah.
I got the pizza.
Okay,
I
you
remember
got the
because
pizza.
there was
else
almost an
produced
accident on the way. No, he got the pizza
animators
for sure.
need pizza? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's not in ClickUp.
Yeah, it's not on ClickUp.
Yeah. I love ClickUp.
Okay, I want to talk about the sequence where he transforms into a bat, because one of the things you just reminded me, the coloring that I had done for this in Dreams was not accurate to the color in the immediate next shot.
That's right.
And I was panicking at 8 p.m. on October 30th because I really wanted it to match and like have continuity. And so we were messing around with like color editing stuff in the
and
final
that was in
composition.
After Effects from this. Yeah, and I remember proposing doing a color selective shift in After Effects just to at least close the gap.
That was definitely you, because I was like worried because I was straight up ready to just open it and spend the night recoloring everything, which wasn't necessary, thankfully. New technology is great. But yeah, it was just straight up purple.
Yeah, right. And then so what we did was, that had been done in purple, exported as purple. You were like, I might need to dive back in and recolor it. And I was like, well, let's isolate the purple and do a selective desaturation and deal with it in comp. Well, let's talk about, I do want to get to the last frame too, because it's fun. There's a fun color transition too. I think one of the things that's cool about this is there's
love that shot. I think this was actually the first drawing that he
this
made.
was
And then he
This looks
Joe.
like Joe.
Yes, Joe, absolutely. He did like a sketch, and then he did line work that he thought would fit my style closer.
Yeah,
which was very cool to see.
And the last edition, made at the last minute, I think the last day, just to hit you on the head and say, this is the joke.
Yeah.
I think
Let's
the only
say
revision,
fruit
well, one revision I would have done is put more fruit in his bag.
I said the same.
Or an apple.
I felt the same thing. I missed.
Yeah.
I wish I'd been more. I also would have tweaked the sound design.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it sounds like a very not raw, like a very underripe tomato that he's chewing on, because it's like very sharp.
Yeah.
Sharp chews. I don't know.
But yeah,
it does. I love that blood splatter with the sharp chew too.
That's
that's the thing. It's at least a little scary.
It's a little scary. Yeah.
You have to, and that was a really hard thing. Was like kind of balancing like how scary can we make this, knowing the reveal is going to happen eventually, but like how scary can we let it get? Like assuming if a kid was watching this and their parent was over their shoulder, with what point would the parent, what are you, just snatch the phone out of their hands or something?
Right.
Yeah. Well, this frame was pretty informative for like figuring out the location, you know, figuring out the geography of the space. I remember that was a bit of.
Yeah, the color as well. This was like a super, because like just having the chandelier up there and having those lights down there, we were talking about how like we can switch from dark to light when the danger, essentially the emotional danger that even though there's no character in danger, you feel the foreboding presence of this like frightening character. And then when the reveal comes, like, oh, he's just a little guy. Yeah. The lights match the emotion, the feeling of relief that you should feel.
I think where Joe is great too is in perspective and composition. I mean, he's great at a lot, but that's like something that he really brings to the table is like really pushed perspectives and making sure to get foreground elements to tell you about the size of the space, and he's very capable of that.
They're so good.
And the last edition was just the putting the fruit bat on, overlaying the thing coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That great animation from Jason, and excellent.
Yeah. Is there any time to talk about the character design really quick?
Yeah,
again?
please.
Because like it was a little bit difficult deciding on color.
Let's cycle back. What's your favorite? What is the operative frame to show when we're talking about? Like, is it the rig closest to your version of this, or the cell where it is?
I think it would be the cell.
Okay, let's go back to the one, that first introduction shot.
When we have the bat flying
It's
in
like
from the
through.
Foreground here.
Oh, are you talking about the bat design?
I'm talking about both because
Okay.
we had to design both of these characters simultaneously. We had to make it we had to make it obvious that they're the same character, so it wouldn't be, confusing. We didn't want the bat to have like a totally different color scheme than the actual vampire. The bat's going to be more purple. He's going to be more colorful, but he has to, like, his wings, I really wanted the outside of his wings and the inside to match the outside and inside of his cloak.
Yeah, right.
His hair, the little widow's peak he has going on.
Did you guys do character lineups for these? You did not, right?
Yeah.
Or you did? Okay, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I mean,
so you guys came to my office. It was like, my screens are a little too high on my desk, and I see over the door, and I kind of pop my head up, and it was Seth and Isabel, and
we're like waving.
They're like, hey. And I was like, and now I sort of assume whenever I see both of you guys, you're going to have a new project to talk to me about.
Fair
But you're like,
assumption.
hey, here's this thing. Do you want to do it? And I was like, that sounds cool. And then you kind of ran with it.
Yeah, we had, I think I showed you the doodle sheet.
Yes.
Of drawings
That's right.
that I did
That's
based
right.
on Seth's drawing. But at that point, we didn't have the bat. At
Yes.
that point, we just had the vampire, and then we designed the bat off of the vampire, the bat version of him, rather, the vampire as a bat.
Yeah.
And deciding, like, figuring out what colors he was going to be was actually, like, way harder. And trying to make, the head shape be somewhat
let's
similar.
cycle forward to there he is.
His eyes are, I think his eyes are the giveaway. His eyes are very, like, they're the same.
Yeah.
His
Let it go a couple frames forward for his eyes being fully open. Yeah, right there. That's so good too. It's so fun. But yeah, the same facial sort of like
Yeah, like facial
Geometry.
structure, geometry. It's so, if you've watched Invader Zim, it's so Invader Zim. Like, they've just got their chins and then that just goes into the neck. There's no, like, the head and neck are not.
Yeah.
I love it.
I remember seeing this frame when Peter did it, and this was one of the first things, that came through by my memory. Was like when he sketched it out and whatever. And I was like, okay, when does it get, when does it look like it's supposed to? I was like,
welcome live action guy.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, great. When is this like done?
Oh, like, you didn't, like, think that the style was
Was done.
finalized.
Yeah, well, I'm just seeing all these things come in, and then like stuff just gradually gets worked on.
Yeah, you're saying like the
And-
sketch of it. So,
Yeah.
So okay, got it. Because cell animation is so complicated.
Yeah.
Because basically you have to start with the character design, come up with all the conventions that will allow you to do the animation.
Yeah.
Then you have to do the animatic, which tells the rough story beats. Then you have to do keyframes.
Yeah. The keyframes.
You're supposed to do keyframes.
You're supposed to.
Or you animate
I did do
straight
keyframes.
ahead,
I
which you
did do
shouldn't do.
keyframes
And then
you just
for
did
the
in
record.
between.
And then I did in between. Which
And in-betweens.
there's like 3
Yeah.
steps in between keyframes and then in betweens that I sometimes blur the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
But it was wild to have so much work be done and be like, okay,
when is it done?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's so different than live action.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near. I mean, a lot of what, and this isn't like a one-to-one true, but it's like symbolically true that a lot more of the post-production, what you think of as post-production in live action, you do in pre-production for animation.
Yeah.
the timing.
The timing, the editing, the storytelling, the refining it all has to happen at the beginning. And then you have to do all of that concurrently. And then the sort of like when you're going into the rest of it, it's like you need a grooved path and it can't
deviate.
Yeah. And that is a fundamental difference. So
it's one of my favorite things about animation is like how on purpose everything has to be. You have to figure it out. Like first and foremost, the story has to like make sense. There's no like I guess sometimes there's like cut scenes, but I've only been on a couple of, I'm on the opposite end of, like I was on like I was involved vaguely at school in like 2 live action film projects. And it's like, it was very strange and bizarre to me. They'd be like, okay, well we can't do this page. There goes the page. And I'd be like, that's crucial. What are you doing? You can't just do that. You have to plan. Everything has to be planned in advance.
Live action is all about, well, not all about. Sometimes it's not the case.
How you feel, man.
But live action, you gotta feel it on the day.
Yeah.
You know, the day can tell you what it needs to be.
You know,
and like I can't even
imagine.
There might be
a garbage truck.
Yeah.
That you were planning on filming.
Maybe there's rain.
Yeah.
Maybe there's no rain. Maybe someone
sucks at acting.
Yeah.
And then you have to do a lot more takes and change your angles.
Yeah.
But there's a lot. Live action, it's a vibe.
It's a whole different mindset you have to come into.
It feels like more of an adventure.
Even
honestly.
directors who are like really locked in, like they're still like the, you know, that 20-30% of the story that's really like has to be informed by what they can't control.
Yeah.
Well, really cool.
Scary.
We have more scary stuff coming soon that we're working on. Completely different pipeline. It's CG, very character animation. It's really fun. It'll be done hopefully by October 30th. Yeah. and we're looking forward to sharing that with you guys then too. Thank you guys for coming on, talking about Fruit Bat.
Thanks, Gary.
And if you're interested in more breakdowns and behind the scenes process, tune in next time to Heralds and Fools. Thanks.
Yo.
On this episode of Heralds and Fools, we're going to be talking about the essential ingredients to making a good animated short. One is your nightmares. The other is artistic integrity and ClickUp, the project management software. No.